Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Problem Solved, the IISE podcast. I'm David Brandt with the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers, and in this episode we're going to have a lean chat with Isaac Mitchell, a longtime member of IISE and the Society for Health Systems, on the lean coffee and book clubs he's operated for several years. We'll discuss the growing interest in this networking method since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the value of gathering like-minded professionals to share and discover new ideas and solutions. Isaac, thanks for joining us today. I know a good bit about the era of your career spent in healthcare, largely through your volunteerism with the Society for Health Systems, but healthcare isn't exactly where you started. If you would, for our audience, give us some insight on how you arrived at industrial engineering and where you started your career and what ultimately led you to healthcare.
Absolutely. So first off, thanks for having me on the podcast today. Been a longtime member of IISE. It's been my professional home and really my go-to network. So happy to be on the podcast today and looking forward to the discussion. It's interesting how I found industrial engineering. I was a typical teenager and was told to go get a real job when I was in high school. So
weren't we all?
Instead of my fun job working at camps in the summer, I got my first real job in a textile mill in a local factory. And it was my junior year, I think. And it was a tough, labor job. I was working in a warehouse, and one of my favorite jobs was we made pajama pants. It was a sewing operation. And, the little drawstring on the pants, I had the responsibility to cut those out on a hot knife for 8 hours a day. So Super engaging, super fun, But something good came out of this experience. I got to meet the plant manager, and great gentleman, and he would come around and check on me throughout the day. And started up really my first mentorship unexpectedly. And it happened to be that he was an industrial engineer by training and told me about his life and his career. And I'd never heard about it before. And started my first journey, and I actually decided to go into engineering school at the University of Tennessee, and eventually chose industrial engineering, and here I am today. But it's funny how you learn about things, and that job that was meant to be more of a life lesson from my parents, get a real job, turned out into an entire career in industrial engineering. So the world works in mysterious ways for sure.
Absolutely. Sometimes the parents get it right after all, right?
Yeah, they do. But I had a great experience at University of Tennessee in the industrial engineering department. That's where I got introduced to IISE, IIE at the time, so showing my age just a little bit. And I was involved as a student president, and then had just been involved throughout my entire career. One of my favorite classes in school was around lean manufacturing. It was really my first exposure to it, and I know we're going to talk about a lot today. But an outstanding professor, and turned out to be a career mentor as well. Still in touch with him. Had a great class on lean manufacturing. Really drew to my interest and kind of my skill set. And first learned about Toyota production system there. And directly after graduating from college, I spent 3 months interviewing with Toyota, and got my first professional job as a production control engineer at Toyota in Kentucky. And that's really where I started my career as an engineer, focused on Toyota production systems, lean manufacturing. Worked in automotive, and then had an opportunity to move to another company, machining company. It was a German company, so got some global experience with that, and actually got to start one of their first lean programs at a facility they had in Kentucky. And then I was actually reading IISE. I got the magazine, and saw articles about engineers in healthcare, and I said, this is interesting. I actually grew up in a healthcare family full of doctors and administrators and nurses and therapists, but never had the calling to really go into that. It wasn't an interest of mine. But the business of healthcare I became really fascinated with, and saw that, hey, I can't believe that industrial engineers are actually working in healthcare. So I'm going to check this out. We were away from home at the point, living in Ohio, and home was in Tennessee. And the timing just worked out that a job had opened up at East Tennessee Children's Hospital to start their first lean program. And I made the switch to healthcare back in 2009. Been in various roles since then with my healthcare and industrial engineering. Worked on a vendor side in a while, worked in RFID technology, and then wanted to get back into a hospital setting. Really enjoy working in that setting directly with improving patient care and outcomes. And that's when I started my role at Ballad Health as the Associate Vice President of their project management program and their operational excellence or lean department. So that's just a high-level overview of my career, where I got today. But throughout my career, it's been interest in Toyota Production Systems and lean, and how to improve systems, and ultimately healthcare became my passion.
Even with the drawstrings from the pajamas to now, is there a common thread that has kind of stuck with you all along this path?
Going back to that initial story, that plant manager cared about his people and improving their work environment and their outcomes. That's more the intrinsic side of what I love about the work that I do in industrial engineering and lean manufacturing. At the end of the day, we're working to solve very important problems that improve the lives of people that work within the system, the nurses, the doctors, all the people behind the scenes that support hospitals, from environmental services, food and nutrition, making their lives easier so they can ultimately take care of patients, provide that ideal care they deserve. So working with people to make it so they can win at the end of the day is what has been a common thread. It's something that really I'm passionate about with this type of work.
Let's take a turn to lean then, because from what I've known of you over the last few years, lean seems to be somewhat of an obsession, although that may be too strong a word. But you mentioned you were inspired by a professor in college. In recent years, you've launched a lean book club and began holding virtual and in-person sessions that you refer to as Lean Coffee Club. And on your website, you define that as an informal networking event for lean professionals to discuss ideas, experiences, issues, and or improvements in lean. So explain the inspiration from your college days and tell me how that inspiration has grown to starting these activities recently.
So one thing I love about lean is the more you learn about it, the more deep it goes into understanding what motivates people, the management systems behind it, the coaching behind it. And at a high level, I just find the topic fascinating. And the more I learn, the more I read, the more I know that I have to learn about what makes organizations successful and how the people behind it grow and learn continually using these lean management principles. As far as, the passion around lean, I really just have a passion for learning and continually improving. On the flip side, I also have a passion for building networks, and not in a technical, IT way, but bringing people together, learning from each other, building relationships and friendships. And that's something that Lean Book Club does and Lean Coffee Club does. It brings people together that are passionate about similar topics. And sometimes we talk about lean and sometimes we talk about other things. But, at the end of the day, it's building these networks of like-minded professionals, having people to bounce ideas off of, experiences, sharing what has worked for them, what hasn't worked. And over time, you build really strong friendships and connections. And lean just happens to be the topic. But the driver to do that has been this passion that I have about bringing groups of people together and networking and building friendships. I started these originally, they were in person before COVID. We would actually meet at a local coffee shop, and we actually had coffee at Lean Coffee Club. But what might surprise a lot of people is lean coffee is not about the coffee. It's just the methodology that we use to run the meeting and start the discussion.
So let's talk a little bit more about how that works. At a typical Lean Coffee Club gathering, who gets the invitation? Where are these gatherings typically held? If not the coffee shop. And how does a general meeting function? How does it all work?
Absolutely. I really just started out with my network and saying, hey, we're here. I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee at the time, and did similar roles, quality roles, lean roles, performance improvement, professors, consultants, students, all types of different people. And I just reached out to them through LinkedIn and personal network and said, hey, let's just meet up for coffee one day. And I learned about this methodology to run meetings called Lean Coffee. And I think our very first meeting was at a local coffee shop. And we got together, grabbed our coffee, and I went through the process of what I learned about this lean coffee kind of methodology. And it's great because it gives you a structure to the meeting that allows people to talk about things that are most important to the group. So it's not just Isaac controlling the conversation or David controlling the conversation with their agenda. It's an opportunity for all the voices to be heard, and then we talk about what's most important to the group. So the way I run Lean Coffees is, and when we met in person, we sit here with these Post-it notes and pens, and the first thing you do is what I call just idea generation. People write down something they want to talk about on a Post-it note, or a question they might have to the group, or a problem they're encountering, and they write those down on the Post-it notes. When everybody's done writing down their ideas, we introduce those topics, and then we do what I call a priority vote. And you can make up the rules as you go. Everybody has different rules, but I let everybody have 3 votes on the topic they want to discuss. So you would go around and put a sticky dot or a check on that Post-it note saying, this topic's really important or interesting to me. This is the one I want to talk about. And I tell people, if you're really passionate about one topic in the group, you can put all 3 votes on that one topic to get it up there. So the voting's done, and from there, we start talking about the most popular topic. So the one with the most votes. We set some kind of time limit. Again, you can make up the rules as you go, but I usually do 7 minutes. We talk about that topic for 7 minutes, and then I make the group votes thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up, we want to talk about this for 3 more minutes to continue the discussion, or thumbs down, let's move on to the next most popular topic. So it keeps the cadence, the meeting going. It keeps the discussion relevant, and it makes sure that everybody's, like I said, talking about things that are important to them. And what I find is, we get a lot of thumbs up votes on these topics. So we usually get anywhere from, 3 to 5 topics within a typical meeting, which usually runs around 60 minutes. So that was happening in my local, Knoxville network. I was actually starting to bring some people from out of town in. It was really exciting. And then COVID hit and the world changed. And I was sitting there in 2020, about 6 months into COVID, and said, hey, I really miss this. I miss the networking. I miss the connections. And I said, hey, why don't we try this out online, see what happens? So I think I posted something on LinkedIn, and something good happened. We had more people come, and we had people come from all over the country, sometimes all over the world, and just really opened up my network and perspectives from other people. And I've been running these every 2 to 3 months virtually. I haven't had one in person since actually the IISE conference this past year in Seattle. They've all been virtual, and we run them through virtual whiteboards like Mural or Jamboard or Miro, things like that. So as bad as COVID has been, there have been some positives. And one positive of this is it just grew the network and brought a whole different group of people in to talk about lean and process improvement.
You brought up the conference in Seattle, and you had a sizable showing for a lean coffee session there. Describe for our audience what the goal of that particular session was and what sort of feedback you got from attendees who may have been introduced to this concept for the first time at that conference.
Absolutely. My intent there was I've got, this shiny object that I learned about 10 years ago, and I was excited about it and wanted to share it with other people. So the intent of that meeting was really just to teach people how to run their own lean coffee. And the great thing about lean coffee is you can teach it in about 5 minutes, and then somebody can run it on their own. So it's very simple concept. There's nothing hard about it. And if you do it in person, it's extremely low cost. I mean, all you need is some Post-it notes, and you can run a lean coffee. If you do it virtually, you don't even need that. There's plenty of online systems that can do that. So literally for the first 5-10 minutes of presentation. I taught the group how to run a lean coffee, just like I went through. And then we broke up into 3 or 4 groups, and we had volunteers that decided they would lead their section. And we did 3 or 4 lean coffees right there in the moment. And each group was talking about, like I said, things that were important to them. So it was great. I think people enjoy the approach and how they can apply it not only to their networking, but how they can also apply it to meetings that you go to throughout your day and work, and how that can lead to more effective meetings and idea generation, things like that.
Whether it was at the conference or any previous Lean Coffee Club sessions you've had, has there been anyone who maybe has brought up a topic or question or anything that kind of stumped the group? You usually set it for about an hour, knowing the kinds of conversations that engineers have, and many that I've sat through. You can take a topic and an idea and extrapolate on it for a long time. So you've got this 60-minute block. Has there been anyone who maybe brought something that was like, oh, everybody wants to stay beyond the 60 minutes, or everybody just kind of left a little stumped? What sort of experiences have you had in that front?
Yeah, I mean, we've had topics where nobody had a good answer to it, and you're sitting there in the moment like, man, I don't really have anything to talk about. But at the end of the day, you're like, man, I'm not the only person with this problem that doesn't know how to solve it. So that can be reassuring as well. I've always got the next big thing in my mind that I want to do, big steps. And, one of those ideas is, okay, let's take one of those topics that nobody has the answer to, and let's get together and have a problem solving session just focused on that one thing. In the IT world, I think they call it hackathons, but can we do a hackathon with a problem around something and bring these different people in from different areas that are just interested in it, that want to figure it out and do some research and solve that problem. So maybe that's the next event I'll have, is my first lean hackathon here to solve some of these big problems.
When it comes to first timers, again, whether it was the conference or any sessions you've had before or since, what are their reactions? Do they come in having an understanding about how it works? Is it kind of a shock in the moment? What do they take away from it ultimately?
I think, sometimes they're unsure, but one of my favorite things about this methodology is, for the people that are unsure, or for the people that are on your team or in your groups that don't always feel like they have a voice, this methodology gives them a voice, because they're not being put on the spot saying, hey, what's your solution to this? What's your idea? Everybody steps back in their own little realm. They have time to process and think about what they want to talk about. We're not putting it on the podium and asking them to present. And then they put it up there anonymously, pretty much on a Post-it note, and it gives them a voice, maybe in an environment where they don't always feel comfortable voicing their opinion. So I'm oftentimes surprised by newcomers that will have topics that are the most popular topics in the meeting. So I think that goes to show some of the power of this methodology that I see with Lean Coffee.
Is this something you've been able to try within the companies that you have worked for? Is this something where you have multiple, even in healthcare, where you have maybe some of the hospital staff, doctors, nurses, medical professionals, able to engage in this conversation as well?
Yeah, it's a great idea generation tool. It's a great way to run a meeting and keep it on time. For instance, I might be in a mapping session or a project management call, and we're looking for ideas, around a solution, and we might just have dead silence. Nobody knows what's going on. Okay, let's flip over to the Lean Coffee format and people start writing down their ideas and then posting them on the board, and then that starts to help to pick up the discussion. So it's a good tool to have in your back pocket, and I've used it a lot, both professionally and for personal networking with the Lean Coffee clubs.
It sounds like a break this in case of emergency tool.
It's a great one just to have in your back pocket if you need it. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the book club. Now, did the book club come first, or was it the coffee club first?
The coffee club came first. So that was, I have never actually done a book club in person. This has always been a virtual format. Okay. But the book club did come out of the pandemic. I'm sure you experienced this probably firsthand at IISE, but for 2 years there, professional education and those type of events were just not happening, mm-hmm. Be it people didn't have time to do it because they were being pulled in other areas. Maybe it wasn't priority for, company at the time, or whatever that reason may be. So I was pretty actively involved with a variety of, continuing educations before the pandemic, and would read books and things like that. But not to the extent I am now with Lean Book Club. So I was looking for that continuing education piece that was missing when the pandemic happened. I said, hey, I need to get back on my reading. I haven't kept up on it like I should be. I'm going to force this through running a book club. And I ran really my first book club, and it was a hit. Kept me going. We have assigned chapters every week, and we actually use the Lean Coffee format in the book club to talk about that chapter and topics, things that interested the group. That's been going strong since the pandemic started. We run book clubs that ran typically 8 weeks. And I think I'm up to 6 or 7 book clubs since the pandemic started. And it's been another great way to continue my education, remain relevant with new topics that are constantly, happening within industry. And again, another great way to network. And it's actually been a great opportunity to meet the author of many of these books. I'm always shocked that I'll send a random email to an author and they say, hey, I'd love to join one of your meetings. And we're sitting here on this, free book club. It's just something I do for fun. It's not a business or anything like that. And meeting with random people on the internet that become good friends. And all of a sudden, this best-selling author's like, sure, I'll do it. I'll come on your book club and answer your questions. So it's surprising how open many of the authors are to joining and sharing their why behind the book and answering the book club members' questions.
What are the qualities that you look for in a book for the Lean Book Club list? Because initially, this all made me think of like Oprah's book club, where there's a seal of approval based on certain criteria. I'm sure I'm entirely wrong about it. So give me some feedback on what it is you look for in the books, and certainly the backgrounds of the authors.
Well, I do joke with the book club members that I am a little biased, and I do have ultimate control over the books. But
hey,
in reality,
it's your book club. What are you going to do?
Yeah. But in reality, I'd say half the book clubs that I've run so far have been recommended books from people that have been on previous book clubs. So I say, hey, I'm thinking about reading this book. I think it would be a great one for the book club, and we go down that route. The current book club I'm doing right now is around storytelling and the power of storytelling in the business world. I do have a lot of industrial engineers on the calls, and we like to believe that facts and data will cause people to change, and that's just not always the case. You need to have an effective story behind those facts and data to get people to actually be interested in what you're doing and make that change. But that book was recommended by one of the fellow people. So as far as selecting the book, first off, like I joked about, it's just something that I want to read. And it gives me an opportunity to read and learn from others in that area. Most of the books aren't super technical. I saved those for a non-book club format. There'll be topics about lean. There'll be some that are what I call like lean books, and I'm using air quotes for those that obviously can't see me. We had some books around topics like design thinking, books like storytelling. So just a wide variety. So it could be anything, but at the end of the day, they do have some kind of theme that could relate back to the type of work that we do in lean, operational excellence, process improvement, whatever you want to call it. But they're not always traditional, lean books. They're books that could relate back to it.
Based on what you've described as the format for these meetings, whether it's the coffee club or the book club, this sounds pretty universal. Like it could be applied really in almost any industry, amongst any group of professionals, certainly even people with a little bit of mixed experience backgrounds in terms of their professions, in terms of their roles. Would you agree with that? Or is it maybe more keep the engineers together and everybody else
that's something that I agree 100% with. I think the name of the club itself could probably be limiting the audience that it could apply to. The books that we choose are not always just lean. They're talking about the psychology behind things, how to coach people, how to mentor employees, how to be a better problem solver, even if it's not within the realm of lean, methodologies. So it really could apply, I think, to almost any type of business professional out there, many of the books that we're looking at.
Well, and I would think, too, it could apply in a much easier way than the discussions around these similar ideas on social media when it comes to mentorship and leadership. If you stroll through any LinkedIn feed, it tends to get overwhelmed with a lot of cliches and a lot of, elongated stories that really don't lead to any significant point, just to give, people a chance to pat their own back sometimes. But it sounds like this is an opportunity where people can really learn from each other. And again, like you say, expand your network as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, one thing I found about the book club is just the people that attend are great. They don't have an ulterior motive. They're not trying to sell something or, like you said, pump up their credentials. And it's truly people coming in with open mind and wanting to learn and listen to others and bounce ideas. So it's really a great group that we have built up over time.
So if people want to get involved with your book club, with your coffee club, what's the best way for them to do that? Anyone listening today might want to jump in on this. How can they do that?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways. Find me on LinkedIn, say hello. I post about my book clubs there, my coffee, any other big ideas that I have coming up, like maybe I'll do that hackathon or some kind of networking thing. I don't know. But probably the easiest way to find out about me, I do have a website with all these other websites on it. You can go to my personal website, isaacbmitchell.com. It's Isaac, 1S, 2As. And you'll find all the information on there about the upcoming lean coffees, upcoming book clubs. Got a few blog articles, things like that. But it's just my little digital portfolio is what I say, and it has all my contact information there.
Well, last but not least, I'm not so much a coffee drinker. That surprises a lot of people. I'm more of a caffeine, Coca-Cola kind of guy. I'm from Atlanta. Yeah. That's just the route I go. What's your coffee of choice at these meetings? At least whether you have it in person or you have a nice mug on the virtual versions. What do you go with?
My favorite type of coffee, not really brand, or what I order is always Americano. So I like just black coffee, and I like the way that Americano is made. I wouldn't say I'm much of a coffee snob, but I drink what tastes good. And I love going to new coffee shops, local places, and just checking them out and trusting the experts to serve me something good. And if it tastes good, I'll continue to drink it. But if I was going to walk up to a coffee shop, it's always an Americano black. So.
Well, whatever gets the ideas flowing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Isaac, we greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Again, if anyone wants to learn more about Lean Book Club, Lean Coffee Club, and other activities that Isaac's working on, isaacbmitchell.com. Isaac, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, David.
You've been listening to Problem Solved, the IISE podcast, a production of the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers in Norcross, Georgia. We hope you'll share this and other Problem Solved episodes with your friends and colleagues. Learn more about sponsorship and advertising opportunities, as well as how you can become a member of IISE by visiting podcast.iise.org.